The NHL is absolutely terrified of the Montreal Canadiens. In a recent article from Pierre Lebrun, as he spoke to Kent Hughes, Kent revealed details about the future of the Montreal Canadiens. Not only does it hinge on Nick Suzuki and the insane future that the team has, one rival GM even said, quote, "That team scares me." We got to dive into everything that Kent Hughes said in this interview, plus a little note on Patrik Laine. A bunch of stuff coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. Let's dive straight into it right now. And I want to look at the power play goal leaders this year. This is the first thing we're talking about today. Straight into it. Patrik Laine last night, after getting another power play goal after a somewhat controversial goal review. Just a reminder, the GM meeting said that absolutely was not goaltender interference. For anyone that still has any questions, just wanted to put that out there. However, this is a list of the power play goal leaders in the NHL, and I just wanted to take your eyes to the games played column. Because you see, Draisaitl and Guentzel each have 15. And then Laine's there in a third place with 14. Laine's played 30 fewer games than Draisaitl, 29 fewer games than Jake Guentzel. And if you go down the list, yeah, Matthew Tkachuk is there at 11 power play goals. He's the next fewest games played with 52. Like, there is no one in the entire league that's even close to Patrik Laine's power play prowess right now. And look, I know we had a decent power play before Laine started playing a lot more with Montreal. Caufield was scoring a ton of goals too, but Caufield's found his way to get his goals outside of the power play, even with Laine there on that power play. And now Laine, he's been, I mean, you want to say power play merchant, but honestly, this is incredibly impressive stuff. And it makes it borderline worth the price tag on its own. His 5v5 and even strength play has improved, though some fans are still not super thrilled. I saw a poll today on Twitter saying, would you rather Laine on the ice or on the bench in 3v3 overtime? And only, I think, 55% of people said they'd want him on the ice. So that's interesting. A lot of people aren't thrilled with his 5v5 or at least even strength play, which... fair, there's some criticism there, but Laine's on, I think, about a 35 goal pace over a full season right now, with 17 goals in 38 games, 14 of them coming on the power play, almost single-handedly making Montreal, well, not single-handedly, it's him and Lane Hutson, let's be honest, those two together have been absolutely dominant. But this Habs power play has hinged on Patrik Laine. We see teams shading to Patrik Laine like we did the Islanders last night, and it literally doesn't matter. The Habs have a power play that can be relied upon because of at least this one weapon. Not to mention Hutson getting a bunch of points, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Caufield all also being very big threats. It changes the whole dynamic of the Montreal Canadiens to have a guy like this, but this is like, I don't know, maybe we don't even understand how insane this is, but like, just look at the, like 38. Then, like, it's crazy. You guys know it's crazy. I just needed to bring that to your attention, but that was just a quick hitter at the start because we need to talk about Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes, listen up. Kent Hughes is ready to cook. Someone is gonna cook. And you know what? He already has cooked. Maybe, well, that's really loud. I'm sorry about that. However, it just emphasizes how much he's gonna cook. Give him the Michelin star because at this trade deadline, he clearly, at this point, seems to have made the smart decision to keep Armia, Savard, these other UFAs, but he went into further detail in this article from The Athletic that I'll link below. Pierre Lebrun did a bunch of writing about it after the GM meetings. Worth a read. I'm not going to show all of it. You know, if you want to read it, pay for The Athletic. Look for Pierre Lebrun. Look, going to give him the credit he deserves here, but let's take a look at what Kent had to say. Go full screen for the first thing. I wouldn't say we came close to trading Armia. By the time we got closer to the deadline, we started to move the goalposts a little bit for everybody. I told teams, I can't say an absolute no, but it's going to have to be a massive overpay for us to consider doing it. And honestly, that was dictated by the seller's market at the trade deadline. We saw these kind of role players going for crazy, crazy prices across the entire league, and to ship off a guy like Armia, who even since that trade deadline has looked like a crucial, a critical piece to this lineup in the 2 weeks since that day, I think it's looking like it was a smart choice, right? They probably would have wanted a second, if not even more, for Yoel Armia, because to part with him and Jake Evans, who have been so good on the penalty kill and in empty net situations, it would have been a bad mistake. So this was very interesting, saying, look, we weren't even close, really. They didn't even come, like, this is something we were saying, look, I'm sure he's listening around. No one gave him the offer, but he also spoke about the other UFAs, talking about Savard and Dvorak. So they were less likely because I didn't think the return was worthwhile. And we would have had to grab players out of Laval and weaken Laval. And to get a mid-round pick, it wasn't worthwhile. And that's actually one of the more interesting parts. You're hearing it'd be a mid-round pick for David Savard. So this also reveals that the asking price for David Savard really wasn't that high. which is a little interesting because we were talking earlier this season how we could maybe fetch a first. That, his play did decline a bit throughout the year, but at the very end of the day, like, we watched him in these last few games. He's had a couple defensive gaffes, but he blocked 8 shots, right? Last game, I believe it was 8. And this guy is just one of those reliable guys. He's going to lay the body on the line, and come the playoff time, he's the guy you want on your team. And honestly, this alone, to hear his thought process, to hear that they weren't really close to trading Armia, not even close on Savard and Dvorak, when I would say a lot of other teams and maybe situations similar to Montreal would probably get rid of them just to bolster their draft capital. Montreal didn't need to because we already have such good draft capital. So this is unbelievable right now. As of the recording of this video, I believe, actually I haven't checked recently, but we still have our and Calgary's picks as of, I believe, right now. So still 2 first-round picks coming up because Calgary's is protected in a certain part of the draft, right? But it looks like we'll get both. So that's crazy on its own. But there's more to this that I wanted to talk about because, look, Kent Hughes did have a lot to say. And while, yes, the deadline's interesting stuff, it's not the crux of this video because I want to talk about the future. He also talked about Dylan Cozens, and I know this sort of still is trade deadline, but there's more to this quote that I wanted to highlight, right? So he said, Buffalo wanted to trade a good young player for a good young prospect. Like, Buffalo didn't really want to do what Montreal had to offer, right? They wanted to trade player for player. That's fine, but it's the end here. In a perfect world, the ideal situation for us on the trade front is dealing prospects or draft picks. This is something that Kent Hughes has doubled and now tripled down on. In his interview with Eric Engels for Sportsnet, he said the same thing. In his interview with Frank Saravalli, he said the same thing. And now in this Athletic article for Pierre Lebrun, he is saying it again. We want to deal prospects and draft picks. And he said again, we're in the position to overpay in terms of trade capital, say moving out maybe more picks than someone is worth or more prospects than someone is worth in order to land that star player. This was a big thing for me, right? And then he also went on to say that we will be very engaged in terms of exploring ways we can make us a better hockey team, but we won't be short-sighted. You got to be smart about it. Every decision, you got to consider the future, right? We have a lot of really good young hockey players that we expect to be with us for a very long time. And that, to me, is absolutely huge, right? Because we know we got Demidov, we got Suzuki, we got Caufield, we got Hudson, we got Slafkovsky, we have Cayden, Guhle, who some people forget about sometimes. Jakob Dobes is coming up in the wings. We got Reinbacher down in Laval alongside Engstrom and Mayu. We have Jacob Fowler, who's looking to be maybe the best goalie prospect in the world. And when you're Kent Hughes, you can't afford to just throw away certain years in the future when you're going out to get a big-time UFA or something. And that's what I love. Everything that he doubles down on is saying, we got to be smart. We got to be super smart about it. And that is why other teams are scared. Other teams are not only scared because of what Montreal has in the now, this team that, one of the youngest teams in the league, still a top 5 youngest active roster, is in a playoff spot, 2 points up on the next closest team with only 14 games left to go. A team that no one really expected to be fighting. You back to the beginning of the season, no one was saying the Habs would make the playoffs. There was too many good teams around. Anyone that's saying that they believed from the start, other than us, no. Well, I don't mean you guys, because you guys have been along for the ride. I mean analysts, right? You look at these analysts, you look at a lot of people, fans of the Leafs and the Sens, no shot they would have said Montreal would be in this position. Whether we end up making the playoffs or not, it doesn't even really matter, because right now, this team, this was last night's score. That's not what I meant to bring up, but it doesn't matter. That's also good context. No one believed where we would be right now. And the final comment from this article just cemented this to me. Like, the fact that this team is overachieving based on everything we wanted to see. Second half Slav has kicked into gear. He looks dominant on the ice right now. Lane Hudson is having a historic rookie season. Suzuki is over a point per game. Caufield might touch 40 goals. Let me actually make it this way. That team scares me. Simple quote right at the end of the article. Rival anonymous GM Pierre Lebrun said he was just standing there. A rival GM to Montreal came up to him, just said anonymously, listen, that team scares me. And you know what? It should scare them. The Montreal Canadiens should scare you if you're another fan of a team in the Eastern Conference, if you're a fan of another team in the NHL, because this team has one of the best young cores, one already in the NHL. Like, you look at their best players, they're all young. Not many teams come even close to Montreal in terms of the talent already on the team that is young. Not to mention, they have arguably the best goalie prospect in the world. Probably I would say, the best prospect outside the NHL in Ivan Demidov. And then you have a bunch of other good depth prospects coming up. and you have the assets to trade for someone big. What is there not to be scared of? Like, and Kent Hughes as well is not just going out there like he said. What did he say? Like a drunken sailor. He's not going to go out there and just free will fire everything, try and get every UFA, every guy on the trade market. He consistently doubles down on how you have to be smart about this. So a team that's already, arguably, in my opinion, the best setup for the future in the entire NHL. Look, I know you can make arguments for other teams, but I'm a Habs fan, so I'm biased, right? Like, obviously. But, like, I think you can still make an argument for Montreal. You also have a GM and a front office who is dedicated to making smart decisions, things that will only allow this team to prosper in the future. I don't know. I'm just hyped. I'm so excited. And if you guys are excited, you need to subscribe to this channel because we're going to be here this year, next year, year after. We're not going anywhere. We're here to keep you up to date every single day. Daily videos on all the latest Montreal Canadiens. That'll do it for this one, though. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and hey, like I said, subscribe to the channel. Check it out. We got a lot more coming just like this. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I'll catch you in the next one.